All right, we've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Mr. Luke Dunkin, huge inspiration in the podcast game, dude. You're like the OG podcaster, man.
I don't know that I can take credit for that, Chris. I don't.
And Matt.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
I was going to
okay.
say Mark's the OG, then Ike.
Yeah.
Oh, and I,
But I'm 7 years in now. 7 years, yeah.
Dude.
So consistently started doing episodes every week in like 2020. But we started the show in 17 at the Forest Wood Cup that Justin Atkins won. Just doing Instagram lives, and then the next spring I started doing some iTunes stuff a little bit. But yeah, this August will be 7 years.
Dude, that's awesome because, I mean, in this day and age, like everyone's got a podcast. You go to YouTube or whatever, type in fishing podcast, and bam,
There's a lot.
Yeah,
There's a lot.
And what gets me is like some people send me this stuff all the time. We say something on a podcast, or you say something on a podcast, and then there's a whole nother podcast that does a podcast about your podcast.
The reaction videos, the podcast about the podcast, that drives me crazy. Don't use my content.
Exactly.
Don't use my content.
Yeah.
I work too hard. You guys work too hard.
Exactly.
I'm getting to see the Bilge in person for the first time. It's a heck of a setup. You spend a lot of money doing this and time,
it's tough,
energy,
dude.
and effort. And I'm like, hey, man, don't get clicks off of something I say. Like, I had the guts to say it or took the time to be creative enough to do what I did.
Right.
Don't try that.
Or like
but that's the internet, though.
That is.
Not just in fishing.
That is.
I mean, there's a lot of repost, reshare kind of stuff on TikTok and Instagram Reels, where viral videos just get shared endlessly for likes and views.
My favorite is when like at Luke Dunkin or at Thr Zaldain, or at the Bilge Podcast, and they try calling you out just to like come up, just to get on that same platform.
They try to pull me into the Bilge a lot. Yeah. I get tagged in a lot of Facebook comments, and I'm like, they do their thing. I'm doing my thing. We're friends. Yeah. We've known each other a long time.
And Randy gets thrown in there a lot too. And I don't know if it's just like, someone said, you guys have a conflict podcast. I'm like, dude, it's not a conflict thing. And I don't believe yours is either. It's literally the things that anglers talk about, but don't, amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And other anglers, but don't get out there publicly and state it. And I think that's one of our goals with the Bilge Podcast is to bring that, shed that light on certain topics and things that go on behind the scenes that the typical high school angler or the typical, weekend angler, they don't get to hear otherwise.
Well, I think that for so long, the problem, you get labeled as dramatic or you get labeled as stirring the pot and blah, blah, blah. Because I've been through all that toxic and all things. Well, why can't there just be more positivity in fish? I love those posts. Or people that have a podcast that go, well, I can assure you there's no drama on my podcast weekly, that kind of thing. Well, good for you. I don't think you're being honest with yourself. But I think that for so long, fishing has been so PC.
Yep. Buttoned up.
And all the stuff that you guys talk about that I talk about with folks on my show for years or give my own opinions, that's what actually gets talked about by the anglers that you follow that give the PC answer video on social media on the weigh-in stage. So I think there's a place for it. The podcast that I'm drawn to outside of fishing, people are just honest. They're just themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
The people that I'm drawn to, that's how they are. So that's just, and y'all know me on the record and off the record too. And I feel like I'm the same guy most of the time. So that's what I try to be. And I think it's a breath of fresh air. Now, people don't like it. Facts hurt feelings. I say that a lot, but
we're feeling it right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Y'all are in the hot seat a little bit. It's okay. Thank you. You're taking some off of me.
I'm sure Boyd Duckett's excited right now.
No, if this mobile studio doesing get pulled away during this, because we're secret location. Yeah, we're in North Alabama right now. We're living dangerous. Being together. If the spies know we're here, this is not good, guys.
Drop a bomb.
That's a good point.
Chris, let's just go ahead and get into some awkward conversation right now because I was getting it hot and then you stepped in for me recently and the last 3 days have been an absolute firestorm regarding you and your entitlement on the water.
Oh, yeah. We posted a video from day 3 of Lake Murray where, I've been fishing a spot all week long. It happens. And then Saturday comes around. I decided to stop on a spot that I've been fishing all week, of course. And there was a local there at the very end of the point. I figured I'd go into the corner where, they kind of been blowing up right up against the bank. I kind of wave, and right off the giddy, as soon as I put my trolling motor in the water, like he starts chirping me, dropping F-bombs. I'm like, okay, all right. hey, was I wrong for rolling up? I thought I was far enough away. I mean, it's you be the judge. At one point, the guy said, "Oh, in our club tournaments, you've got to be 50 feet away, 50 yards." And I was that far away. And I was like, "Well, dude, this ain't a club derby. I'm out here trying to, do my thing, blah blah blah." And it was just a whole back and forth thing. That type of thing happens on the water every single tournament, just about every single tournament, especially on these ledge tournaments, especially on a herring spawn tournament. I don't own the water. He doesn't own the water. He is free to fish wherever he wants. But yeah, I mean, just a huge thing. And this day of social media, like you just said, it all gets put out there. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I've been getting smoked. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to hear Luke's opinion on that. Give us the truth.
So
you've been there before.
I've been there before. And like you said, things like that go on in every professional event. They go on in every, like I covered the Alabama Bass Trail. Trust me, I'm out there on the water, 225 boats, and it's angler against angler. Sometimes it's anglers against. We saw it at Eufaula. There was a big club tournament going on, and these guys were really close to guys fishing for 15 grand. Does that make their tournament less important? Not necessarily.
Right.
It's all played on public water.
Yeah.
I did a live this week, though, because I had not seen your video, and people were for and against in the comments. And there were people like, man, I think different of Chris now that I've seen this. Like, I saw that comment. I'm going, dang, I got to go watch this. Did he take out a gun on this guy? Yeah. Then I watched it, and I went, no, that just happens all the time. What I think you should be applauded for, in my opinion, is the fact that, I mean, you could have edited it.
Yeah, I could have. Exactly.
Right? Like you're being real.
Right.
Because again, the problem in this sport and so many sports is we cover up the things we should cover.
Yeah.
JT Kenny said that on my show. We don't talk enough about the things that actually go on.
Yep.
I had an experience like that, Kentucky Lake FLW in 2016. I was running 92 miles one way from Kentucky Dam all the way down past New Johnsonville to a place. The first day, called him, was in like the top 15, and a guy watched me catch every single one up, clapping.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Hell yeah, man. This is awesome. I'm like, all right, this is my guy right here. This is awesome. How did he find me all the way down here? The next morning, I had Brian New as a co-angler at the time.
How about that?
As crazy as that is. So we drive all the way down there, and I get there, and this guy is dead nuts on my waypoint, spot locked, and is catching them every cat.
Oof.
And so I pulled up, and I say, hey, man, it's me. It's Luke. You were clapping for yesterday, fishing for 100 grand. Is there any way that I can pull him fish? He goes, you can stay right there. Immediate change of attitude. And he says, I don't need a pro to show me how to catch them on my home like you didn't show me anything. And I know for a fact. So this spot, I was very familiar with this area. I found this spot not by graphing, like by fishing. It was a hard spot that I'd actually found that was kind of off the beaten path a little bit. So I know he didn't know the spot.
Right.
Like the fish were not where they, like if you look
where
at,
they should
look
be.
at your map,
Yeah.
they weren't where they should be. They were down about 100 yards. And it was just random that I found this deal. And he was sitting right on it. And dude, we have this big altercation. Brian's in the back going, hey man, just calm down. I got an FLW GoPro with me. And I'm just like giving him all he can handle.
Oh, yeah.
And he did not move for like 2 hours. And I sat there, could not get a cast in. He caught a 7-pounder in front of me, lips it, and he goes, I'll be back tomorrow. I've got a tournament. I said, dude, I could have told you they were here. I pull up, don't catch them, and have to completely abandon ship. End up going shallow, catching them, making the cut, this whole thing. And I got down there on day 3, and he was there with a partner. And they're like double netting 4-pounders when I pull up again. But yeah, so that happens all the time. Folks watching,
don't see it.
Yeah, folks watching the bilge. Had you heard my mouth that day, and I've got one, he got all he could handle. Trust me, I'm sure FLW never released the GoPro from that.
I think hindsight, like as a professional angler, you got to show professionalism, right? And I don't think I particularly did in this case, but I say it all the time, and I didn't go, I didn't follow suit with what I've been preaching, and I think the biggest thing, like you did, is when you dump a trolling motor in the water, is make sure you communicate. You just communicate, speak facts. Okay, I've been here for 3 days, 4 days, or whatever it is. And then be courteous and say, hey, man, do you mind? This is on the line, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. In my case, I didn't. I don't know. I was in the zone, blah, blah, blah. And
that would be the only thing I would say to you, like critically, is just, because if he's there first, even if he's not in the tournament, I get that. And dude, we're all adults. Yep. So adult language comes into play, like adult conversations, like he's cussing, you're cussing, like that's going to happen. Like, sorry to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
People actually talk like that in the real world. And it's a high intensity situation when you're on the Elite Series. And for me, I heard the guy, he said, I get 1 day off a week. I get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. I also been to Columbia, South Carolina. There's a lot of lakes in that general area. Like,
yes.
Why do you pick right here during the deal that's going on?
That's my comment to this. And I'm going to support Chris. He's my husband, right?
Of course.
No, I'm, going to go to battle for him. But that was where they were fishing. If you were watching Bass Live that week, over and over, Zona would say, or Davey, whoever it was, that's where 80% of the field, that area of the lake, 80% of the field was fishing.
Yeah.
He was well aware. Like, he knew what he was getting
Didn't he have
into.
Bass Live on too in the boat? I heard you say, I thought you said that.
Like, it's not like he went like to the one end of the lake where not everyone was.
Yes.
So in defense, like, that guy knew he wanted some.
Well, didn't he say he didn't know there was a tournament going on too? Yeah. Well, didn't he make some kind of because you said, well, you got Bass Live on.
Yeah,
I can't remember what he said when you said
but either way, he saw the tournament boat.
Of course,
like it was a herring spawn.
And for me, because I'm a normal fisherman, like more times than not, that I try to pick when I go and when I hit right, and anytime there, I don't care if it's a 100 boat club tournament on Wilson Lake on the Tennessee River. If there's a tournament going on, I just don't go to that lake.
Yeah.
Let's go somewhere else. Like I've always been that way. If I pull up the ramps crazy, I'm out of there.
Like, you're not talking about either a guy, in a non-bass boat,
Yeah.
You can tell a difference between a person who knows what's going on and doesn't. And again, of course, I'm going to defend my husband. Outside of, I wasn't thrilled with all the F-bombs just because people are going to use that to discredit us now. No matter what we say, it's always going to be a comment.
I love
about
a good
that.
F-bomb. I'll be honest.
I'm not saying
I won't drop one.
That's why you've had Watson on the show 3 or 4 times.
I went unbleeped, several unbleeped F-bombs with James.
But I wanted to see everything that Charles had, So I watched it all, and I could hear the guy chirping the whole time in this 20-minute span. But when Chris dropped his trolling motor, that dude was on Chris's rear. Yeah. He wanted to fight.
I mean, it was a different cast and everything, but hey, look, I guess I was in the wrong.
You were in the wrong.
I will say that week,
all the F-bombs, but also you guys can't be bullied around.
Well, that's the thing.
Were your lines crossing when?
No, never. I was making a completely different cast. At one point, they started busting in the middle of us, and we were both kind of doing this number.
Were there 2 different hard spots? Is that what was going on?
Yeah, there was right up against the bank, and then off the tip where he was fishing, and he had another buddy who was on the backside. But that particular week, it was Lake Murray. It was. There were a lot of things circulating within the industry as well that hey, maybe I had a bad morning that morning. I don't know. There was a lot of stuff going on outside of that tournament within our industry that were, and when isn't. But it seems like, I know you see this as well, and it's funny because with your podcast, things just come to you, like topics and things just get sent your way. And I don't know, it's because like you're known as that guy. We're known on the Bilge as, Randy Blockett gets sent stuff all the time. But does it seem like in 2024, the first half of 2024, there's just been more smoke than normal?
Well, I won't say more than normal.
Right.
I think there's been a lot of it, but man, since everything turned over on its head in 2019, there's just always something.
Yes.
That's what I said this week on the live. It's like the Zach Burge thing that just happened with MLF. It's like, that was a good event. It was a cool event. Like I watched a little bit of it. I'm like, it's a new fishery and professional fishing. They're catching big ones. This is fun. I like Drew Gill. I think Drew Gill's a good kid. And then you just have this kind of fog around it because of the Burge DQ and then the backpedaling on the DQ because things went down. And it's like, dude, why does there just always have to be something? Always have to be something. Like, again, that goes to people saying back to you stir things up or you're dramatic or toxic. Well, I didn't make that up.
Yeah.
I just talked about, like, I just gave social commentary on something that actually happened.
Yeah. Like I'm getting blown up right now for that tweet I sent, and we don't have to go into it, but Trey and his tournament partner, and my regret on that tweet, definitely what was being talked about, dude. It
was everywhere.
It was being talked about for 2 months leading up to that of like, is he going to fish that tournament? Like I was getting sent things like, constantly at that point. and I just put it out there. What I regret is that I probably didn't process how little the public knows about what's going on.
That's with everything, though.
Yeah.
Not to cut you off, but that's the problem with what we do with the industry is the public. See, I joke all the time. Santa's not real, neither is the Easter Bunny. Sorry if you have children watching. I don't feel like I do on LBL. But like, so if you think everything is the way it is when you see the big cardboard checks and the trophies, well, most of the time it's just not. And it's like that in every sport. Like if you really knew what your favorite NFL player was like, you might not like him as much. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like there's realities to situation. Exactly. Dude, get off my guy, JT.
Yeah.
But that is being talked about a lot. Like that week at Wheeler, I heard from more Elite Series guys like, did you hear that this is going on? Yeah. This happened last week. And I'm hearing from locals that knew that it happened. And I'm going, is this reality?
Yeah.
But if you talk about it publicly, it's like, well, you're picking on somebody or you're choosing sides, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, again, this is factual.
Yeah.
It's actually happened and it smells like a skunk.
Yeah. I'm just talking about it because that was like literally going crazy. Like people were wanting heads.
Yes.
And I tweet, not realizing that people don't understand, like, and that's where my mistake, I feel like is sometimes like we know about like even smoke that's going on in Illinois. And that was my feelings. Don't bring that down here to Wheeler. Like, let's keep that out. And
that would be the smart play to me. If I had advice for someone is not
don't bring it.
Don't bring more unnecessary attention to yourself.
Right.
But
and then there's even more going on at Wheeler right now. And I sure as heck am not going to be the one to talk about it, though everyone's like, I told one person we're having Luke on this morning and the person was like, oh, y'all got to talk about it. And I'm like, I need a breather. Now.
Sometimes we can't just go all in hard in the paint.
So that's the thing, right?
How do you handle it, though? Because I'll be honest. I even told someone from Bassmaster, I texted them because I was pissed about something. And I said, you know what? I'm going to pack my Twitter up and I'm going to pack the podcast up and I'm going to go because I ain't down with the direction of this industry and I ain't going to take heat for the direction that's going on right now.
For trying to be honest.
Yes.
I've said this a bunch. I feel like, and look, I've lived this on the MPFL side of things. I've seen it in FLW when I competed there. I hear the stories. I see it at Bass and even small tournament trails. Tournament trails are in the business of selling advertisement and marketing, right? Bad news is not good news.
Yeah.
We've seen it time and time again.
Sure.
Not saying they're dishonest, because I'm not. I do think that a lot of times they try to hold things to the utmost, high standards. But if a storyline's good, they're not going to upset the apple cart. We've seen that dating back to FLW and the Tony Christian insanity, right? Nobody knows what happened with that. And it was one of the behind the scenes, one of the biggest. I even asked Bill Taylor on the show. He's the only person that's ever been banned in FLW history, and you will not find a straightforward answer on what actually happened in that situation.
Try Googling it.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. And I was in college during that time, and it was message boards were hot, right? It was before social media, but there was all these theories and things. And I've spent a lot of time with the FLW folks over the years, great people. And that is like, you don't talk about it.
Wow.
It's like the name you do not bring it up. It is insane. And I'm going, that again, one of the biggest could be, listen, it could be a Netflix. If half of it's true, it could be a Netflix documentary that would go viral, whether you love fishing or not. They won't talk about it. And our industry has always kind of been that way. It just has been.
Yeah, we've never really had like journalism in the industry, like legit, unbiased journalism. Like any media outlet right now is trying to get the same sponsorship that anglers are after. So they're, I heard a story about Bass Fan tabling. They had all the evidence on an angler in the world, and they tabled it. And they even had the confession from the person who gave the angler the waypoints, and it got tabled, and you'll never hear about it again. And that's one thing, like, and I don't know, is there unbiased journalism in other sports, you think? Like, is Stephen A. Smith biased?
Well, when you go into just yes. But I think when you go into all media, like it's all controlled by one thing or another. Like we're seeing that, right? Like media is everybody's got an agenda. I won't say that I do, but it probably comes off that I do. It probably comes off that you guys do. Right. Those are my opinions. Call it what you want to call it. But I think unbiased is very tricky. To say that I am unbiased against MLF, well, dude, like.
Impossible.
Piss on Jim Wilbur. Like, I'll say that right here, right forever.
Right.
Like, screw that guy.
Same.
Like, he came after me and my family because he didn't like my opinion.
Right.
Like, of course I don't like him.
Right.
And some of his goons, but to say I don't like the entire organization, all that, like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do have a personal beef with some of them.
Same.
And I know
thing.
you guys do as well, but I don't wake up every day and want to see it fail. I don't.
Right.
But going back to your point about media and the sport, no, it is very much that. It's the companies that sponsor anglers control the media, because of advertising dollars. It's what it all is. Look, maybe they're smarter than we are. I don't know. Some days when you wake up like you probably feel right now, Chris, you're kind of in a fog, getting beat up over things you say. There are days I go, maybe I shouldn't have went full send on that.
Yeah.
You know, just because of the backlash sometimes is just not worth stating my opinion. And I mean, that's just full disclosure. Like, sometimes the hill you choose to die on is not worth it.
Yeah.
I will say that. Like I've had some interesting things happen because of the podcast. And if my wife was sitting here, she'd tell you, like, damn, I wish you hadn't went down that road because our family's being impacted.
Did you receive literal death threats? Like, literally death threats?
Yes. My kids were messaged. My wife was messaged.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a crazy 48 hours. Yes. Yeah. It was a crazy 48 hours. I was at the Smith Lake Open, and the number of grown men that messaged me telling me they would be at the dam at Smith Lake the next day to take care of me was absolutely mind blowing. Now, of course, I'll look right at this camera and tell you, none of them showed up because I told every single one of them, show up, let's go. But it was crazy, man. It was crazy. The number, like my 12-year-old at the time, the number of messages he received on Instagram from people. And I'm like, hey, man,
it's not fair.
Like, come at me all you want, but people posting your address, people posting your children's names, like that kind of stuff is just not all right. Wow. It's just, it's a very ugly side of the internet. And look, you see it again, not just in fishing, you see it in sports. I mean, if you put yourself out there in a public realm, whatever that is, you are open to that. Like, you are opening yourself up, your family. If you're a bad quarterback, right, for whatever team, you're going to get crushed. Right. It's not just fishing. I talk about the negativity in social media a lot in comments, but it's everything. Yeah. Like, you're on Facebook, you look at a music post. Oh, it's Turnpike Troubadours, and it'll be 50 people on there talking about how they love them, and it'll be 50 people talking about they're the most trash people in the history of the world. Yeah. It's everything.
Yeah.
Because it does bother me when people say that our podcast is why fishing's toxic. Like, that really does get to me. And so I think about it all the time. Why do you think that they blame like these podcasts instead of the people actually who are doing those things? Like, that's what really eats at me. Like, this person is doing something super disrespectful. That's why we're discussing it. But we are the problem for putting it out in the public.
I don't know the answer. That's a great question because it does happen. Like, the heat that I've received so many times for being honest, and the comments you see, it's either, oh, well, you couldn't catch them good enough in the FLW, so now you got to talk about stuff to stay relevant. Okay.
It's huge right now.
You know, that whole deal. Oh well, you couldn't catch them. So that's it. And I know you guys both get that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why. And again, you see that with other stories. If a guy commits a crime and you report it, a lot of times you'll have people in the comments defending what they actually did. And they're mad that you talked about actual things that have facts. Yeah. Actual facts.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know why people, I think it becomes very personal for them. Santa's not real again.
Right.
So you tell me that Angler A that I love and I have their signature series, everything. Oh my goodness, they are not what I think they are. You must be the problem.
Right.
And I think that's what you get into. It's like this fandom thing that people can't believe what you're saying. Well, it's got to be Trait. Yeah. It's got to be Chris. It's got to be Luke. It's got to be Matt Pangrack. Yeah. Shout out Panger. He doesn't stir anything up.
I will say
Matt's safe.
Matt sent me a screenshot of a comment he had on a post he made, and it said, let's get a response video about Chris needing to be disqualified or something like that. And he's like, what's this about? And I said, it's about that in that little thing with the logo. And he's like, wait, what? They think he needs to be DQ'd? I'm like, yes, Matt. There are people who think he needs to be disqualified over that situation.
I'm going to start a petition about that now. I'm gonna start.
There's
a petition.
probably one that exists, you know.
Probably. I haven't been sent that yet, but I really don't know. People can't handle. They can't handle the facts a lot of times, man. They just can't.
It's crazy.
And I think you've got to be. And I'm not. And this is not throwing shade at fans or people in general, really. But I think people aren't forward thinking enough at times to even think like. You can't believe everything you're spoon fed.
Right.
And I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy by any means in life. I'm just saying, like, sometimes you go,
yeah,
that is like too good to be true.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it
It's
very much is. It just is.
yeah.
Like, maybe we need to start calling out names. Like that was one of the things we were dancing.
No, I called out a name on my Twitter, and I'm Satan now.
Yeah.
Like you
Like Luke
cannot
drops
please
names.
anybody.
I will drop names and I will say this. I don't go full throttle all the time when I can.
You just simply can't. Like
you can't. And there are people that get involved in things that I personally like. I will say that. Like they might not be like for one reason or another. I don't have a personal issue with them. And I do have a hard time sometimes when things pop up. I'm like, like I like this guy, even though he screwed up, but this is not okay. You got to talk about it. And so I will talk around it a little bit, but I try to throw it out there best I can, for the most part.
Right. It's
not easy though. No. I've lost, listen, when the BPT thing happened in 2019, and it's really funny to kind of see the chickens coming to roost, so to speak now. Right. But I lost dear friends that I'd traveled with for years. And now, and not to just call them out right here on the Bilge, but so many of them were like, sup, buddy? Now. And I'm like, well, hang on. You remember for 2 years you didn't speak to me and I was the devil and I would hear things that were being said behind closed doors about me because I had an opinion and was defending them and how things were not going like they were promised. Like, and you chose sides with that side. And now you're trying to figure out how to get back to Bass,
everything
or get wherever.
Everything you spoke on turned out to be true. Like just
pretty much dead on
thing.
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm getting heated over a subject, I got receipts. I got a reason.
That's
I may not be revealing all my cards, and I may be kind of playing dumb and naive, but I probably am loaded.
You can back yourself up most of the time. I agree. You and I have talked a lot over the years about things, and I've said this on the show many times. I see things on social media now. I feel like people create drama that's not factual.
Sure.
Hey, I got a phone call
about
this, and this is what's coming, and then nothing happens or whatever. I can, honest to God, on my mother's grave, I can say I've never said anything on the show that I either couldn't back up, or if I was wrong, I came back the next week and was like, hey,
screwed that
you know what?
I
talked about this and I got a phone call from the person involved and I was way off base and I apologize.
There you go.
That's who I am. So I'm not going to start a rumor. That's what I'm getting at with some of the social media stuff I see. I'm not going to start a rumor or clickbait something that's not true. I'm just not going to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bass fishing. Like the number of views we're going to get on a bass fishing podcast, you guys get a lot, but they're just, at the end of the day, it's not going to be a life-changing amount of money. It's not going to be Joe Rogan because I said, blah, 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 did this.
That's what
more at 10.
People think. They're like, oh, they're chasing views. And just like you said, it's bass fishing. We're not going to get life-changing views. Like this is, we're not chasing clicks. There are no clicks to chase.
No, the podcast for me is very cathartic. I've said that for a long time. It's gotten me through a lot of really tough situations in my life, but mainly, losing my mom. I was so open about that. And that was really, it was during that MLF time frame where they came at me and all that. And I was brutally honest, really for the first time, like publicly, like, hey, I'm just going to throw this out here. And I'll never forget the day that the podcast went up about Jim Wilburn contacting Thr Marine. I was with my dad. We were on a hunting lease and it was, a couple weeks after mom had passed. And he's like, you sure you want to do that? And he's like, I don't, and I was telling him, I was like, hey man, I just hit record and I just went and it felt so good. And I talked about mom and I talked about the whole thing. And he's like, I don't know, son, I'm nervous, like for you, like being in the industry. And I don't know, like some of these people are powerful and they might be able to, do something too. And I said, I'm good. I'm good. And it was funny. We were down there for a little bit with no phone service. And I got back to phone service a little bit later and the video had gone live. And it was insane. But the number of people that text, the number of industry people, that were like, yeah, complete clown show. Yep. And I'm talking about people that worked for them, people that sponsored them. Like it was mind blowing the number of industry, like writers and people that have worked in media and that I didn't know, that did not know Luke Dunkin before that day in October 2019. But then on the other side of that, the number of people that said, I lost my mom to cancer. Yeah. I lost my dad. I lost my brother. In the comments, and man, it was just, or I talked about my mom and the butterflies, and it was like the number of people, like every time I see a butterfly, I think about my mom. Yeah. It was, but for me, that was one of the darkest times of my life, and it helped me get through that. Awesome. The podcast did. So still weekly, and people fast forward through this part, I'm sure, every week, because I see the comments. They're like, go to 20 minutes in if you want to see him talk about some good stuff. But I open every week talking about my life because it's cathartic, like whatever's going on. Yeah. And I think that, like, for me, when I left TH this year, I really fought for a long time on how I was going to handle that publicly, because I was there almost 19 years. I was one of the faces of the company. And since right out of college. And I woke up at 3 a.m. the night before I was going to record the first podcast of the year. I sat straight up in the bed. This is honest to God. And I wrote 3 pages of my just like guts. And
at 3 a.m.
At 3 a.m. And it was like, couldn't sleep, just kind of tossing and turning with it. I knew the next day was when I was going to record on Sunday. And I already told Marissa, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be as honest as I can. I've done that on the podcast for years, and I feel like people will hopefully appreciate where I'm coming from. And I just wrote this stuff. And so the next morning she got up, and I just put the papers in front of her, and I walked away. I was like, read that. And she read it, she started crying, and she goes, wow, that's it. And so when I hit the red button that day, walk out to the bar and grill, and I recorded it again. When you upload, I had no idea how that would go. It was one of my most viewed podcasts that I've ever done. And it was just me giving like honesty. And this is where my life's at. This is why I've made this decision. And it was, I was trying to be, to a certain extent, like, tell people where I was at mentally, but from an inspirational side, like, hey man, like, if you're stuck in something you don't want to be in, understand.
Get out.
Like, you can get out of it. Like, whether that's as crazy as this is to say, whether that's a marriage, a job, whatever. Like, if you are miserable and things aren't going the way you want them to, don't just live in it, because I was living in it for a long time and I didn't like the person it was making me. And again, it was so therapeutic,
right?
And vindicative in a way. Like, you start reading comments and people are like, hey man, I stepped away from my corporate job 5 years ago. I started my own company. And I just bought my 3rd house, and my kids work for me, and blah. And you start seeing this outpouring, and you go, okay, this is right. This is right. This is awesome. Right. So for me, that's very much where the podcast started and still is. Like, I'm going to talk about, I've been called a narcissist by a couple times by a fellow out there, but I'm going to talk about myself, because guess what? It's my show.
Exactly.
I get to do that.
Exactly, fella. Why don't you spark up your own podcast?
Exactly. Quit using my clips.
So I got some questions about your company. What ultimately are your goals with it? Like, what are you selling? I kind of know what Thr Marine did, but what's the lane that, like, you plan to carve out?
So for me, TH was awesome for so many years. It just was. Bill Huntley, that founded that company, was a fantastic human. Greg Bowie, that hired me there, fantastic human.
What did TH do exactly? Like, short version?
So many different things, to be honest. It's tough. They're known as kind of, people see like the G-force handles and the jack plates and things like that, but really their bread and butter, a lot of boat builder parts, like through holes and little grommets and things you don't see. So stuff. And that's what I did there. So I called on boat builders for the majority of my career there. So when I left, I'll be honest, full disclosure, Southern Boating wasn't even like in my thought process. Like, I was so fed up with corporate life that I just wanted out. And I was doing Alabama Bass Trail, doing NPFL, doing the podcast, and my wife and I run the numbers. And she's like, I mean, it ain't going to be easy, but we'll figure it out. Like, that was her line to me, and I figured it out. And so I resigned, and I was fortunate to meet 2 gentlemen in the process that tried to hire me for a company they had. And I turned them down, and they're like, well, let us back you in a business. And I'm like, and I had a business planned for several years since TH sold the first time. Been thinking about this and never had a non-compete or anything. Because I am passionate about that side of my life. Like I love being in boat factories. I love the people of the marine industry.
Right.
Like there's a lot of
you
really,
enjoyed that,
and I have so many relationships, almost 20 years in it, like that I didn't want to just never connect with again. And I had several customers going when I told them I was resigning. They're like, well, I guess we'll see you again after the first of the year selling to something else. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Well, bullcrap. We'll see you. We'll see you. And I'm like, I don't think so. Well, they were right. Ultimately. But in December, we kind of put this thing together, Todd Hammond, Steve Sumner, and made this thing a possibility. But for me, it's getting back to the basics of what was fun for me at TH, which was drawing parts on a napkin, awesome. And going, yeah, let's try to build that. Or, all right, somebody makes this mousetrap. Why is this popular? What can we do to make a better mousetrap? Or you just sometimes tip the hat to what's already out there and it's great, and you move on to the next thing. But we were a very tight-knit group at TH for a lot of years, 8 or 10 of us there. You're going to lunch together every day when you're there. You're talking about parts. We're fishing together on we were always off on Fridays, so we fished together on Fridays. We'd travel to tournaments together.
Talking about the sales side.
Yeah, sales side, like the whole thing. Like we're all together, and you go, hey, man, when I was in my bass boat this weekend, you know what we could do? And 2 weeks later, we would have a part. Well, as it got bigger and very successful,
that side
stops. And then you start going, well, we're going to, this guy does this. Well, let's knock this off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or buy it out. Right. There were a lot of buyouts, and look, man, my family was well taken care of by Thr Marine and the success there that we all had. And that's great. And I walked away from a lot of, a lot of things to pursue my own thing. But for me, every day when I get up and I'm in my shop at 6 a.m, like I have been so invigorated by what I'm doing. And it's so cool going and I'm so beyond grateful that there are major boat builders in this company that I rolled up in January, and they're like, well, what are you doing? And I said, I don't know. What do you want me to do? And they're like, well, we got some stuff over here in the corner. Take a look at this. And so the identity of Southern Boating is almost being created by the customers. Like I have ideas where I want it to go, but the customers are kind of dictating, and we're already shipping to boat builders, and we just turned the website on a couple of weeks ago, and we've got truly one boat part on there. We've got some hats, and we've got one thing. We've got a lot coming that we're working on. If anything, I wish it was happening a little faster, but it takes a lot longer to do things. But at the end of the day, I just want to be known as quality stuff, innovative stuff, and customer service being at the utmost importance, because I saw that slip to the wayside in my former life. And like, your customers are the only reason you're in business other than your employees, right? Yeah. And you have to have the customers before you can have the employees. So for me, it's always treat, regardless if Southern Boating turns into the biggest thing in the world 10 years from now in the boating industry, I want to never forget what it is right now. Mm-hmm. I want to never forget who I am. And I want to always make sure that anybody that's connected to me, whether it's a customer or someone that's on our team down the road, understands like how much they're appreciated.
Sure.
And never lose sight of that, and that's easier said than done. Like I promise you, because we had those conversations at TH2, nothing will ever change. And then inevitably with growth, it's hard to keep that family feel that small, because TH was very much, there weren't many of us for a lot of years. And now like they trip over themselves down there. Everybody's got a big title and all. And like at the end of the day, I want to be the guy that I can run a tape gun in the back and ship something right next to the guy. It doesn't matter. That's awesome. Like I want it to always be that way. But that's my goal with it.
Very
ultimately. Cool. Yeah. It's, and man, it's in my hometown. That's another goal with it is, my family, my grandmother started a produce company and grandfather back in the 60s, and Duncan's Market. It's been this little, almost like our buddy Sam George's Christmas tree farm, but it's really known around our little community. It's a really,
still there?
Yeah. My first cousin Matt actually runs that now. But I've spent my entire adult life running from my hometown, if that makes sense. Like, and like you guys, you travel, right?
Yeah.
I either traveled fishing when I was a kid. That led to being gone in college. That led to going straight to Thr Marine and living a life on the road, selling or fishing for years. And so now my building, our offices, our warehouse is a half a mile from my drive.
Adding value.
So cool, dude.
So it's like, man, I have a chance that down the road we could have a business in my hometown like my family had at one point that people can make a living for their families. Like that's another big goal with it.
Very cool.
Yeah,
dude, you've got a lot of irons in the fire right now, dude.
That's why this beard is gray, dude. Trust me.
So like we're doing this pod on a Friday. What do you have lined up this weekend? You got a couple things lined up.
Yes, I got ABT, got Alabama Bass Trail, the finale in the north. We're on Guntersville, so not too far from here. And
this is on the water stuff. This is MC.
Yeah,
Are you afraid you're going to get shot by Boy Duckett?
No, I actually fish over there a good bit and haven't had an altercation. I can't believe it, to be honest. But low key, the Express is just jet black this year. There's no wrap, so very smart. But yeah, ABT over there, and we do 5 hours on the water coverage. There are 3 of us that do that. My buddy Darren Craig and Jason Duran. We run around for 5 hours. Miss Kay's in the mobile studio. Really cool coverage, what she's done. I mean, for a weekend trail, like it's insane.
For a regional tournament,
it's so
you guys
cool.
Do it huge, man.
It's so much fun. The production company, they kill it. And then I get about a 2-hour break, and then I do the weigh in. Robbie Floyd had worked with her for many years, and this year I went full time with her. I filled in for him a couple times, and now I'm getting to do that. And truly, it is one of my favorite things that I've ever been lucky enough to do in the sport of fishing. Like it's just crazy that the podcast kind of led to these things.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's feeling that emotion on stage. Like I get why like Dave's done it for so long. So many people, like when they get those gigs, they don't just move on to other things.
Right.
You get to feel the good and the bad. And it's kind of addicting. I'm not gonna lie. Like
that's cool.
When you watch a guy like come up short, even that emotion, like feeling that is still like, it's really cool. Sorry.
Yeah,
if you finish second,
sure.
But it is like when you see somebody coming up and they're like, we got this. And then they lay them in the basket and it doesn't happen for them. And you just feel that. Yeah. We've seen that like 3 times this year. It was really close. And they thought like they're doing the math backstage and they don't have it. It's, but then in the moments, like we had Amanda Williams. She's one of our female anglers. She fishes with her husband, Buck, in the Alabama Bass Trail South. Awesome individuals or characters. Like they never make it through blast off. I'm calling boat numbers ever on time because they really have a great time on Friday night every time. And I love them for that. But she actually fished with an alternate at Eufaula because he had some obligations, family obligations, and they weighed in a little over 16 pounds. And it was the biggest bag they've ever weighed in their ABT career so far. And I'm interviewing her on stage, and she's always got something really funny to say. She carries on, big personality, and she started crying. And she's like, I'm sorry. We just have never caught him this good. And this is the best we caught him, and we're going to get a check. And oh my God. And she was crying. And like, those moments are so cool. Like it's just so cool. Yeah. So, but I do that. I'm working for MPFL doing the live. We do those in Wisconsin.
Oh, really?
I think I've got, studios. Yes. If you're watching this, MPFL, please get us back on site.
How many days are you there for when you fly?
So it's not bad. 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah. So a lot of travel though. I fly into Milwaukee. They're in Appleton, Wisconsin. Fixed Productions up there, and so I'm about an hour and 40. But Fat Cat and I are up there. We were on site year 1. I love that because again, you feel the emotion. You're at the weigh-ins. I can interview everybody as they come off and get that. Like, all right, this is how he was feeling. You can talk about that on live and try to give that to the viewers. But I've got 7 of those this year, so we're 3 down, 4 more to go on those. And then Southern Boating, and then 5 kids. 5 kids at the first of that.
Dude,
we stay busy.
Special person to balance that.
It takes Marissa Duncan mainly, to be honest. Like,
that's what I'm
put up with all of it.
Wife.
Yeah, she's just like, you said yes to what?
Yeah.
And every now and then she'll rein me in, but most of the time she's like, do it. You want to do it? Go for it.
What's that travel to Wisconsin? Is there a direct flight?
Yeah. So Nashville to Milwaukee. So I'm an hour and a half south of Nashville. Okay. That's where I fly out of most of the time. So hour and a half to Milwaukee, not bad. Rent a car and up there. It's really not a bad trip. And we've been going there since late 21. I love the area, other than in the winter.
Right. Spotted Cow, right?
Yeah. Spotted Cow. It's a really cool area. The people up there are great. Our production folks. It's good, but I do like the next one's on Pickwick. It's 45 minutes from my driveway. Nice. I'm going to Appleton, Wisconsin. I want to be at Pickwick watching it go down.
Interesting.
But I remember when the phone didn't ring. I say that a lot, but when nobody cared, right, about anything you got going on, you would have killed for these opportunities. So I have a really hard time going, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I'll be old.
Because you don't know what it's going to lead to,
you don't know.
Right?
You
like right
know.
now, put your iron in as many fires as possible because one of them could go,
So I'll be honest, when the MPFL announced that they were, that they were going to be a thing, I was like, man, there's no room in this industry for another tournament circuit, but you guys have carved out a heck of a little slot in the tournament fishing world.
They have clawed, man, scratched and fought, and their joke with me. So before I ever had any contact with them, they announced, I think in like 2019. And they had this little press release, right? And I got it sent to me. And I actually made a joke on the podcast that said, "Oh, you got a tournament trail? So do I."
Yeah.
Like, that's the famous line.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, they're family, but they truly asked me to come on the show. And I was like, man, you got, like, there's no schedule. There's no rules. Like, what are you doing? Like, who's fishing this thing? And I really didn't take it serious. And then in late 20, they reached out again. And I said, yeah, I'll do one, but I want to do a live.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see the fan, like, what fishing fans thought about it. And it was very positive. Like, most of it was very positive. And like 2 weeks later, they called and said, "Hey man, would you like to talk about going to work?" And I said, "Nah, I don't think I want to do that." And then talked again. And then they came down. They're like, "Can we just come meet with you?" They came to my house. I'd never met these guys.
Wow.
And laid out their long-term plan. And I was like, you know what? Believe in what you guys are trying to do. Like, I think you're crazy.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
But if you can pull it off, and man, it's been a roller coaster. Like, it's not been easy. It's not all been roses. And they'll self-admitted, Brad Fuller and crew, they will tell you, like, it's been ugly
Brad
at times.
Fuller, the TD.
Brad's the president. And really one of the original founders, Al McCullough, Brad, and then Paul Benson works with them. But they've been through, Brad and his wife, Michelle. And now we've got Mike Como, who's majority owner now. He actually bought in after year one. So it's been a wild ride. I'll say that.
These guys are hammers, right? I mean, they're like, they catch them, and then you got Elite Series guys and MLF guys.
We got guys like a Bryant Smith, West Coast guy, but Bryant was with us, and did not know Bryant at all before the first year. We're 3 tournaments in, and I'm going,
this guy's the real deal.
Who's this dude? A, he's great on camera. B, he catches them. He's great at explaining what he's doing. And he was always on camera the first year. I'm like, this dude's a problem. Now he's on the Elites.
Yep.
David Gaston, same way. Like, on the Elites. Like, he was a hammer for us. But, dude, the guys that you don't know, that don't care about social media, it reminds me of the old FLW days.
Right.
In the sense of, it's 6 tournaments. They want to show up, fish for big money, and then they want to go back and do what they're doing.
Sure.
And there's a lot of those, and they're a problem. Like, they're
Do you
really
get
good
any of the drama, like the forward-facing sonar drama and stuff over there, or is it a lot more chill?
We do. I will say we were the first to do, like, show the screen last fall. We really worked hard on that. And so we got a lot of props for that. I will say fans kind of stopped griping, but no, we get the same. Like, you see it. People are, he's staring at a screen. The thing we get beat up on the most is probably the fact that, like, Patrick has been successful there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, he's successful
everywhere.
Like, that's the point I've made so many times is, like, well, go look at his track record since he's been around. Like,
top 5 AOI, like,
everywhere. I think he's never finished below 15th in the Elite Angler of the Year standing since his rookie season.
I'm surprised he even finished that low.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Like, he's incredible. But at the same time, he doesn't come in and win every single one of them. He's won several MPFLs, but he's always sniffing around it. You feel like that. But no, there's a guy, Timmy Reams from West Virginia, and Timmy and he's got social media. Like, he gets out there promoting sponsors and things. Fairly young guy. I feel like the first 3 years, like, he was always on camera everywhere we've gone, and I think he has collected, out of all the guys that have fished every year, like, would be your overall angler of the year, like, far and away.
Right.
Guy from West Virginia that I'd never heard of before you get out there and you watch the guy, like, he's a stone cold, like, catcher.
Can you imagine ever, like, a K and an MPFL, like, combining forces,
I don't know. K other than,
or is she building her own empire over
She's got her own empire. Miss K is, she's the real deal. She's so freaking busy, Trait. Like, I think adding anything else to her plate
would be too much.
But I will say this: anybody out there in our industry that could utilize her, and her knowledge and her freaking work ethic would be, next level, because she is. You've never seen anything like it, man. What she does behind the scenes, it's incredible. Like, I don't know how she truly walks around without passing out. Like, she works harder I say it, I bring her up on stage a lot, the hardest working woman in bass fishing. And maybe the hardest working person, period. Wow. Like she never stops, man. Whether it's, she's directing traffic with us. She's also trying to do the on-camera personality thing. But like, for example, you follow last week, we had a polygraph examiner during live that was supposed to be there to do the poly, cancel on her 3 hours before weigh-in. So we're doing live. She's dealing with that in the background. She's also telling us which boats to go chase. She's doing all this. And so she's trying to book another polygraph guy. Like all these things are happening behind the scenes that nobody sees. And she's just like, hey, welcome back, Kay Donaldson. Here. Like she never misses a beat.
Yeah.
Nobody sees that. They come off without a hitch.
Is she the one that cracks the whip around there if there's some funny business with anglers?
Oh, yeah.
She seems like someone who could.
You don't want Miss Kay on you. Yeah. No, you don't want that at all. Now, John Simpson's our tournament director, and John doesn't put up with any crap either. But Kay is like, she does not like it. She does not like don't
taint her.
Yes, don't
brand.
push it. She's 11 years into this deal. She knows where it started. She knows where it's at now, and you don't mess with Miss Kay. Awesome. I'll take up for Miss Kay. Like I work with. I've known her very many years. Like through my TH life, we sponsored ABT. I fished ABT. She's just a fantastic human, but truly nobody realizes how hard she works. Like it's crazy.
As far
she doesn't get enough credit.
As far as like, the 50 states, I mean, as far as like the most well-known regional or statewide tournament, I mean, ABT is by far,
that and Bass Champs.
Yeah.
For sure, Bass Champs, like the Bass Champs guys, Texas teams, like all that stuff that like really, they're great trails.
Yeah, Texas.
But look down your Elite Series roster
and see how many. Yeah,
and how many of those ABT that are former winners and BPT too. Like it's crazy. Or a Josh Butler that just won the Logan Martin. Like all these are former ABT winners.
Yep.
ABT anglers, even like Justin Atkins, fished ABT while he was in college. Like all these, if you can catch them there.
You can catch
ready.
it.
Like you're going
ready.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of guys like we see a lot in local regional stuff that could compete that just choose not to. Yeah. Like a Mark McKegg, Tim Hurst, like one of the greatest.
Kind of like a Castledine situation.
1,000,000%. Yeah. They're like, oh, well, we win 30 tournaments a year in Alabama. Why are we leaving?
I get to sleep in our own bed.
Like, Todd and Russell Cecil for years. He's like, dude, we won. There was one year, I think it was like over $500,000. It's just crazy. In Texas. And I'm like, yeah, why are you fishing the FLW tour? This is dumb.
Right.
Why are you here?
So I mentioned, when NPFL announced that they were going to be a thing, and I was like, there's no room for another tournament circuit. We just got word a couple days ago that there's another one. Like, what's the deal? What are your thoughts on that? And what's it called? I mean, what I saw the little logo on it.
Well, at first when I got sent it, I thought it was the TAA, and I was like, yeah, we know about that.
We get it. Yeah.
And then I saw the graphics, and I was like, I don't even know what this is,
I made a comment on Instagram that it looked like I designed it on Nintendo 64. Yeah. The graphics are like, I mean, dude, I'm low budget. I feel like my logo is better than that.
I didn't even know you could. I mean, we got AI these days. All you have to do is like tell it, make me a good graphic,
Siri,
and it can.
Make a better graphic than this.
Yeah. I don't even know that they went on Fiverr and got some dude from India on that. I don't even know what that was.
So this is a national circuit? I haven't heard.
No, I think it's just one tournament.
Oh, it's one tournament?
It's just, for now, I guess.
$500K payouts, supposedly.
It's
but no one tags their name to it. There's no
nobody
company
will touch
listed nothing. It just,
which I think is on purpose.
Yeah.
So it's like a weird thing where you got to buy a membership or something, right? I saw something about 5,000 members.
Yep.
Yeah, they're already peddling members, but they won't tell you who they are.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That works out great in America.
And who's behind this?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. It's just the great unknown right now, Chris. It's a great unknown, just floating around in the ether of this super duper world championship
on
bass fishing on Guntersville.
Let's see Patrick Walters throw his name in the hat
for a and win.
Yeah.
No forward facing sonar.
Yeah, there's so many new little tournament whatevers. It's so hard, which I don't fish anymore. I mean, it's not a secret. 21, wasn't feeling well. Now we know what it is. So I stopped, but obviously I'm still very involved, and I'm burnt out on tournaments right now because a lot of the chaos behind the scenes is very real, And throwing another one in the mix, I'm like, is this really the time? Like,
well, I think like Chris said, the same could be said for MPFL. So I can't can't come at it and go, well, there's not a place for it because we just don't know what the industry and what the anglers ultimately, but I'd say like the TAA deal, I signed up.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Like, man, this is perfect for my schedule because it's during the week.
Yeah.
I like Lake Lanier. This will be fun. Well, as it got closer to time, like, how many boats you got?
Yeah.
And everybody wants to talk like no forward face. Oh man, that would be a smash hit. We had 46 boats.
Yeah.
Well,
we didn't even know what it, like we had, everyone's like, why didn't Chris fish it? Blah, blah, blah. We had no clue about anything.
And I've talked with Alan Brooks several times. It's over, like, very intelligent guy.
Heard.
Comes from a great place, like where he wants that thing to be. But again, I feel like I've seen this with the MPFL. We've said this a lot over there. Everybody wants something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Until it comes time to make that decision to go put your money somewhere different.
Yeah.
So we've seen that with like all the BPT drama, FLW Tour drama, when it got swallowed up, we thought at MPFL, and mainly because they were getting phone calls from tons of anglers. And they're like, oh my God, we're fixing to get this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. Well, then when it comes down to the damn time to sign on the dotted line, so-and-so is going back to BPT or so-and-so's. And we've seen this year after year after year. So I'm like, until people actually show up, you don't know what you got. You don't know what you got. So maybe there's room for it.
Yeah.
The fans seem to...
how do you pay $500,000 to first?
This is good.
The classic
can't even the state of Alabama's backing that up. So I guess if you pay taxes and Alabama goes to it, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, there's not a sponsor. The website, I got on it because obviously we host Bass Fishing Podcast. I feel like I'll get a question about it. Sure. And I got on the website and nosed around and was like, this is really, there's not a lot of information.
I didn't know what the nonprofit was called. You know, it says it's a nonprofit. So I looked for a nonprofit of any sort of fishing name.
Yeah.
In Scottsboro, in Gunnersville. No, I couldn't find one outside of the MLFAA.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Kind of what I'm hearing from that part of the country is there's not a lot of where they're going to host the tournament. There's
cart
not
before
a lot
the
of,
horse.
There's not a lot. Nobody over there. They're like, we don't know.
No
what is
permit.
this?
Yeah,
they saw the
weird.
same press release. So yeah, it's odd. I think a one-off event like the old TTBC was really cool. Absolutely. If this could be something like that, maybe could have a place once a year, especially if it's got that kind of money behind it. People will ultimately show up, I would think.
Yeah.
As long as there's not any shenanigans behind the scenes, but
it's fishing.
It's fishing. So who knows?
And the whole like no forward facing sonar thing. I mean, what's the latest on that? I mean, where are we at so it's been,
do we really have to go there?
Well, no, I've got a question. I mean, it's been beat, of course, and you've been on the OEM side, the boating industry side. So one of the biggest arguments for forward-facing sonar is all the sponsor money that Garmin and Humminbird and Lowrance and those top 3 electronics companies pay these tournament organizations. I mean, in your opinion, is that money is it strong arming like that decision? I mean, because from what I've seen, I don't think that when someone makes that argument that these companies are paying Bass or paying MLF all this money, I don't think it's as big as they think.
The fans never have a clue on that part of it. They just don't behind the scenes. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I was with Garmin for a very long time. I feel like I had a pretty good idea what they were spending with Bass. It's not life-changing money. It's not life-changing.
It's not.
Yeah.
Like if Bass saw something fundamentally like, hey, this is hurting the sport or this is conservation, all the arguments that we see a lot, or viewership's down, yada, yada, all the things, it would trump the money.
Yeah.
It would trump the money, in my opinion. That being said, it might carry a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I said this last week on Low Budget. Derek Hudnall, actually 2 weeks ago, Derek Hudnall, we were talking about the industry and him retiring and all that. And we were talking about this forward-facing deal. And I said, and it's really forward-facing and a lot of other things. As an industry, we've let the cat out of the bag, right? So say all pro fishing does away with forward-facing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do you think that everybody's going to stop using it because you can't on the Elite Series? Cat's out of the bag. And my exact term was the monster's out of the box. Yeah. Like trying to put him back in there. Like we've spent 5 years going, dude, this right here. Right. Shake your minnow. Check this out. Right. Let me show you this. Like we've shown all that. When you can't, it doesn't mean Bobby that fishes down here on Elk River in the Tuesday night tournament's not still going to use it.
Yeah.
They're not.
Right.
I mean, like, in my opinion, it's not going to go away.
That's what he always says too. He always says, like, even if they get rid of it, like, everyone knows how good it is.
And for me, and I know, like, I'm not, everybody thinks you've got to kind of go one way or the other with it. Like, you either got to be Randy, right? Or all in.
Right.
And for me, I'm very old school in the way I like to fish. Like, I like to skip docks, and I was a bank beater. That's what my dad was. But I also grew up on Pickwick, fishing offshore, like reading stuff with a map. And this is something that I've said a lot too. Like, when Navionics came out, the first mapping, like, I'm like, this is bad.
Yep.
This is the devil. Like, this is not good.
Showing
but there wasn't social media to chime in.
Sure.
I might have been that guy. Like, when I was like 23, 24 years old, that should have been embracing it, right? But I'm going, this is a problem.
Yep.
I fished an Everstart down on Pickwick, and there were people on every spot that I'd learned with a paper map, and they were from all over the country. And I'm going, oh, this is not good. I'd call my dad at night, and I'm like, this is not good, Dad. Like, they know everything. They know all of our spots, and they know them in 2 days. So that was kind of the first time that I saw technology be like a problem,
right?
But it makes you more efficient. So, but then I'm the guy going to wherever to fish a tournament out of here, and I'm like, oh, well, I can get this Lake Master map, and I can see this. Like, ooh, I like this.
Exactly.
So and I was a little bit like that with forward facing the first time I saw it. I'm like, this is not good. I don't think this is good that I can see my bait and see them. But for me, I do enjoy using it at times. I'm just never going to be the guy that fully commits to it. Yeah. So in regards to pro fishing, though, my opinion is, like, I want you to be able to use whatever.
Yeah.
Like, entertain me.
Yeah. Right.
Right. If I'm sitting here on a Saturday morning and you're at the St. Lawrence River, if it ups the number of 5-pounders I see, right, wrong, or indifferent, scoop them and put them in the boat.
Right.
Let's go.
Right.
Besides live bait, bring it.
Yep.
Show me something. And I think we've learned so much about bass from it as well. I think you would say that, like, being the swim bait guy, like, seeing them react to your big baits and things, like, it's really been eye-opening what we've seen from it. And I think that's why people have a problem with it a lot too, is a lot of our general thoughts about fish behavior, for the most part, might have been incorrect for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they always do this, and they go here and they do this. And now I'm go, well, they don't do that at all.
Not at all. Yeah.
My dad was wrong.
Yeah.
Bassmaster Magazine was full of lies.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we kind of get nostalgic about it and go, there's a problem.
There's a rumor going around the industry, and I heard it's not so much rumor and true, that one of the bigger retailers have said that they'll pay whatever org who bans it first $1 million.
$1 million bonus. Did you hear that rumor?
I hadn't heard that
one. Yeah.
Wouldn't doubt it, though.
Yeah, because hard bait sales are so down.
Oh, and look, there's no doubt it's impacting tackle sales. Like, I'm involved in that side of the business a good bit these days through a rep group that I work with with the guys that are partners with me on Southern Boating. And if it's not a jig head minnow, sometimes it's a problem, man.
I'm actually surprised there hasn't been a bigger rush of companies, producing more and more lifelike, minnows and jig heads and things like that. Now, I don't know where we'll be after Bass's decision. I mean, this is just me speaking as Elite Series angler, but there's been rumors of 80% for, 20% against, and I thought it was more like 50-50 or 60-40. But matter of fact, this week on Wheeler, I talked with Chris Bose over there, and we were supposed to have a meeting here at Wheeler to address some of these things, but they haven't quite come to a stance on a black and white stance over the forward facing thing. So they couldn't have the meeting this week. So it looks like they're going to have a decision either for or against forward facing sonar when we go to New York next month. And that's when we'll have our meeting. So I'll make sure I bring a hard hat. And maybe I'll travel with my hockey gear up to New York, because it'll be there are a lot of topics in fishing right now that are discussed amongst the anglers that really need to be addressed in a kind of a public town hall setting. And I think the last Elite Series meeting we've had was, I think, 2 years ago, and that was a spicy one as well. I mean, the biggest thing is payouts, right? Everyone complains about the payouts, of course. And
what are your thoughts on payouts?
Well, I think they're terrible.
Yeah.
I think they're terrible. I think the fact that we've regressed in that sense, right?
With
Entry fees go up and
believe the
payouts.
BS that orgs are tapped out and they don't have the money to fix the payouts.
I don't know. When I was on the angler panel at FLW, and this would always come up. And until you, as anglers, with your customers, right, at Bass, I mean, ultimately, unless they open up Pandora's box and show you, we'll never know. So the anglers are always going to feel like they're getting robbed because you guys are their product. You're their customers, but you're also their product that they sell to sponsors. It's there's not really another situation like it in professional sports of any kind, because we pay to play, professionals pay to play. And then they also are like, hey, Chris, can you shoot this content for such and such and use this? And also,
but it helps your sponsors.
Congratulations. You made it to the final day and you're on Bass Live, but we sell the fact that we've got live and we sell the ad rates at this. And so it's a very convoluted situation.
After the same sponsors too.
Yes.
The anglers and the org are competing for the same company.
That's always very tricky. Mm-hmm. Very tricky. We've seen that get sticky at times, to say the very least. So I think they bring in a lot of money through entry fees for a lot of things. But again, it's like you said about the electronics companies. I really do, from a business standpoint, I think we would probably all be surprised at the overall profit. Yeah. I really do think we would.
Yeah.
I may be wrong, but I think if we all sat down with an Excel spreadsheet, we might be like,
do you think they have a lot of fat they could cut?
See, I feel like organization, and you guys can tell me because you're at Bass events a lot, but I know just like FLW Tour, boots on the ground, they didn't have a lot of people.
Right.
I mean, it was a skeleton.
Lean.
I know NPFL, speaking from experience with them, the fact that they pull off what they pull off with the crew they have is incredible to me.
Right.
But it's even really the same with ABT. Kay doesn't have a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small crew. She's got more than NPFL's got, though. I will tell you that.
Wow.
And they pull off most of the time logistically without a dang hitch. But even from a production standpoint, we don't have that many people in the studio.
Yeah.
Pushing levers and it's not many. It's
wow. Yeah.
5 of us total up there in Wisconsin. And I know I've heard over the years, MLF's got a dozen, working on something. I don't think they got as many now. I think some folks got sent home, but I think we would be surprised. I really do. But as far as fat goes, I don't know. You guys see it. I don't know what we would consider fat. You know what I mean?
Well, when you see every new project or trail, or you hear, they have the nation and all of that. For me, it's at what point, if we can't even take care of our top level, do we bring up where is the focus? And I get we have to have grassroots and everything. I'm not saying that whatsoever. Do not take that way. But I'm hearing
that's getting taken out of context.
Yes,
for sure, Chris.
I'm hearing rumblings of just possibly some other new stuff, and I'm like, but wait, your dudes are still paying $45,000. We're still not paying the full field. Why are we taking on more things if we're not even getting the value out of what we have?
And the company line at all these companies, whether it's MLF, LW, and Bass, I think those grassroots, to me, is what I've been told.
Yeah,
that pays for their ability to do the Elite Series, right?
Well, yeah, and I'm told,
right. You know what I'm saying?
I love the grassroots. I'm not.
Oh, I know. And I think BFL, I think MLF. I think buying FLW was a mistake for them ultimately, but I think had they not done that, they'd probably already be out of it.
Sure.
You're right.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know there are deep pockets backing that thing, but I think BFL's, Toyotas, and the Invitationals pay
for the
other deal.
Yeah.
I fully believe that. They are revenue machines to a certain extent. But again, I think if you look at the books, they might not be as crazy. But I think the deal with Bass, the Andersons are a very successful, it's a big time, but you can't just write checks all the time, or it's a hobby and not a business, right?
Yeah.
You've got to, it's got to be able to stand on its own.
Yeah.
And it's the same with MLF. You had the Kroenke money behind it, supposedly, and all the things. But you can't just, not a charity. You can't just keep giving money to it. It's got to stand on its own at some point.
Gerald Spohr went on, I think it was your podcast, and said they've never turned a profit, ever.
Mm-mm.
That's a problem.
That is most businesses, they say like 18 months, right? Like that's the deal. And you're in year, 5 or whatever. Like that's not,
we can't as an industry be a charity case.
Mm-mm. No. And I think when the money was so big and when all the spotlight was on FLW as far as payouts, right?
No,
you had the $1 million cups
Yeah.
because of Ranger at the time. And you had the $500,000 events. And then you had $250,000 of regular season tournaments. They're paying 10 grand down to 100th place. Like it was
good, dude.
Insane.
Really good.
And that was in the early 2000s. A lot of people watching this probably weren't even keeping up with tournament fishing then, right?
Yep.
We've seen, and that's my fear, is that we've seen the quote glory days as far as payouts
I'm
go.
hearing that a lot lately.
I do believe that.
Yeah.
I do. And you had Walmart involved on the FLW side, and it was
and
like
all their brands.
and it was just insane. And that Walmart leverage was so huge. And once that dissipated, we've not seen another really, really big now is the money out there in this country to prop bass fishing up? 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to see the inherent value.
Yeah, they can't.
And it being the Bass Masters presented by, Cadillac.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Like, and it's sad for me. I read I know you guys saw the Barstool article where they talked about soccer getting the boot and it was funny, but even in that kind of tongue in cheek way where they're like, well, there's nothing more American than loading up your jaw with a chaw and drinking beer and fishing. And I'm like, damn, like that's still in this day, like you watch, if you watch an hour of Bassmaster, that's what you think.
Yeah.
Like this is high pressure. Like most of you guys are athletes, right? Like you're running around long practice days. I say most. Yeah. It's most. I'm not an athlete. I'm a mature athlete. But you guys are very athletic. Like it's fast paced, dude. Like if you out there covered, like even an ABT, the amount of spots people hit in a day, like people think it's just watching a cork though.
Right.
Yeah. Right? Like that's what you're being compared to. And it's
1,000%.
like not sitting on a dock waiting on the bobber to go under.
Yep.
Like this is these are $100,000 boats.
No, that's
$30,000 worth of like crazy technology. And it's not presented that way though, publicly.
The stereotype still exists.
And there are still more people that fish in the United States, not tournament fish, but fish than play golf and tennis combined. That's still a stat right now. And look at the PGA side of things and you go, oof. I mean, Bryson DeChambeau won like $4 million or something in the U.S. Open. It's crazy.
It's the billions that this industry brings in, like honestly, like how have we not been able to tap that?
I don't know.
For all these decades,
Are we just living in our own little tiny bubble though? And we just think because we all do think it's big. Like when you're in it, you're like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Look at this. Look at the Bassmaster Classic, buddy.
Yeah.
And it's like,
by the
reality,
comments,
I don't know.
The comments on his last video, getting in it with a local, I don't think tournament fishing's that big. I think they hate tournament fishing.
I think your average dude that just likes to get up and go bass fishing on a Saturday morning and go and he's going to do it his way, throw a chartreuse and white spinnerbait at the bank everywhere he goes or whatever. Like he cares that like he's not going to watch live.
Nope.
He doesn't care. He's probably jealous a little bit of the rigs that are out there, and the equipment and that kind of thing. And like, even if he doesn't admit that to himself, there's probably a little bit of that envy that comes in it. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
He doesn't care that it goes on. What kills me is when we go to these cities for the classic and look, classics are, the attendance is amazing. I do my low budget lives there and it's like always like a pep rally. Like it's fun. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. But for example, when I book these venues to do LBL and they're right downtown most of the time where the Bassmaster, and I try to do it a few months out, right? Most of the time, everyone we've done, they have no clue the event's coming.
Yeah.
No clue what it is.
You're right.
And they go, now what is it? What is it? And then by the end of the night though, we fill this thing up with low life. Like it's fun.
Yeah. They
go, hell yeah, man. When you guys coming back? And I'm like, well, 2 or 3 years from now, we'll do this again. But they don't like these fishermen spend money and they're having fun, man. This is awesome. But they don't know even just a couple months out that the biggest event in our sport is coming to
their hometown.
It's wild.
Right.
Are you, have you figured out your venue for Fort Worth yet?
I have not. We are kicking around a few. So my buddy Ryan that plays for Turnpike, he played with us this year in Tulsa, which is kind of like their stomping grounds. He's throwing a few out to me, but I want to go big.
There you go.
This year.
Yeah.
Everything's bigger in
Fort
Texas.
Worth,
Right?
perfect place.
But I want to go. I'm a dreamer. So I've always got big ambitions, but the last two we've done, we needed a bigger venue. And so, I want to go bigger this time.
I'll tell you off camera.
Not huge. Not Billy Bob's huge, but I want to go bigger.
We're not going to announce it, but we're going to throw a little bit of a party for everyone who qualifies for the Classic, but the Monday night.
Okay.
Their night off, and it just be for the guys and their plus ones, and just welcome them to Fort Worth. Let them have that experience they normally don't get, right? Because normally they don't get to see the city. They're constantly doing something.
On the move.
Yeah. Something without the sponsors being there, because that dinner kind of gets stuffy.
Yeah, you can't turn loose. Yeah.
But in saying that venue, you might also want to think about.
All right. I'm in.
It's not downtown, though.
Okay. That's a big...
It is in the Stockyards, if that's close enough.
That would be cool. That'd be downtown enough.
5 minutes.
And I think that has a draw too. People want to be in that area, Yeah, we've been fortunate with venues letting us do our thing.
Yeah.
Let's get a little rowdy. You get a bunch of
we've seen the clips.
We've seen the clips, yeah. But and for me, that's again, going back to it being cathartic, the Classic is a very busy week. Yeah. And this year we were launching just to the public, talking about Southern Boating Supply. We didn't have a booth or anything, but we had so much going on. And then Saturday night, once I do the podcast part and then I get on stage and we play, everything just kind of comes out. So there are things that get said on the microphone every year that I just pray don't end up on the internet, because after I get into Tito's a little bit, playing guitar,
let her rip.
But it's so much fun. But I look out and I see industry people. I see it and elite ain't this year we had half of the freaking elite series. It wasn't in the Classic in there, and so fans of the show damn, I get to buy a beer for my favorite elite. It's real. That part's cool for me to kind of get to have this melting pot.
That's what
and then
it's
like,
about.
oh, well, there's this dude from this boat company, and there's this guy from this motor company, and this trolling motor, and they're all in there hanging out together and all about it. And it's I had two companies that I've never worked with in this industry at all. They would never contact me for anything. At the end of the night this year in Tulsa, come up and say, hey, in Fort Worth, we want to just sponsor this event.
Yeah.
How do we get involved? And I'm I've never really had anybody ask to just sponsor this event, because I always just kind of let the sponsors of the show just be a part of it. And they're like, no, we want our logo on buckets of beer. And I'm like, okay, well,
that's awesome.
I'll call you. Yeah. Let's do it. But the fact that it's becoming this little thing,
that's huge. That's what it's all about, man.
What's the ICAST? I guess the Coast Apart. It was always the thing. And now it's I like that the Low Budget Live. Panger always says he comes every year. I'll shout out to Matt Panger, because people are like, oh man, you guys have competing podcasts. No, it's not that
people
at all.
Don't get that.
No. We all pull for each other because we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And Matt, he's never missed one. He's always there. And this year he's one of the first folks through the door with his girlfriend. And he always says, you're a madman. The fact that you want to do this gives me anxiety. And I'm like, dude, I just for playing music years and years and years, I love that energy. Oh man, sign me up. And he's just cool. Dude, all this makes me want to throw up. He's like, I'm having fun. I'm proud for you. I can't imagine trying to pull all this off.
A little tidbit about Matt and his anxiety. So when we had him on, he flipped over the thumbnail Charles made, and I've never even, and I'm a girl, and you would think I care, and I'm talking about blowing me up. Tell Charles he has to change it. Give me Charles's number. I'm gonna make him change it. And Charles is like, yeah, I'm not changing it.
Charles, you make him look? I make myself look bad. I don't need Charles making me look any worse.
He really the whole thing about women and the good side and the bad side. He literally said, "That's my bad side." Can we switch this up?
See, all my sides are bad, Chris. That's I'm good. I don't have a good side.
That's awesome.
There's not a good side here.
Well, we're here in Alabama and it's 95 degrees. I know you're busy, got a lot of stuff. We really appreciate you stopping by and catching up with you, dude.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, in Fort Worth, when you come to our hometown for the Classic, we'll do round 2. And
Let's do it.
And I'm sure we'll have a little more room to get a little more spicy, and I'm sure topics will popped up in the next 8-9 months. But before we let you go, can you just give us some, selfishly, I want to ask you, when you're dealing with internet bullies, how do you manage that? I think you answered that a little bit earlier, but let's not ask that. let's just go with some basic life advice. And I know you've been through a lot, trials, tribulations within the sport, but generally speaking, as we part ways here, general life advice.
Man, I think, I'm 40 now, so I'm the old man in the room. I keep saying that on the show, but I do, like, I find myself feeling older every day and hopefully wiser. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, for sure. I think the biggest thing is kind of what I said on the podcast earlier this year about the TH situation is it's really never too late to figure out what you want to do. Like, if you're passionate about something, like, try to do that. Try to go for that, because just going with the status quo and saying, hey, this is okay. Like, this is okay. I'm supposed to, this is how we're all, like, programmed, right? I'm supposed to get up and do this and go to this cubicle, and I hate myself for it, but you know what? I feed my family doing it, and that's what it is. Well, there's something else you can do, right? There's something else you can do to kind of free yourself. Like, maybe you got a creative side that you don't get to utilize. Like, whatever you're passionate about, do that. I'm not telling you to sell your house and leave your wife and kids to be a pro fisherman. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
But truly, like, whatever, like, don't stop. Like, I have so many people I'm inspired by in life. Like my buddy Darren Craig that does Y'all Sweet Tea.
Yeah.
Like, this kid, his upbringing is like, it wasn't just the prototypical, oh, well, my family's this way, and of course I'm going to be successful because like, he has gone through so much, and he never, ever, ever, ever just says no, or I can't. He's just that guy. And I've learned, he's 10 years younger than me, but I've learned so much from him. And my number one thing in life, I have it written on a whiteboard in my office. I have this, and my wife said it to me, but it has become our motto in life, is figure it out. Whatever it is, figure it out. Yeah. Like, I tell my boys this, they work with me every day at Southern Boating this summer, and they're like, hey, Dad, this won't work. And I'm like, figure it out. They're like, well, it's not working. I'm like, I know, but you have to figure out a way to make it work, because guess what? There's nobody here to back you up.
Yep.
And that's my thing now every day, is I can't fail, right? Southern Boating is my baby. When I was at TH, there's 30 people.
Yep.
And like, hey, well, I'm not feeling it today. Somebody else might pick up a cycle. I don't have that choice anymore. You have to figure it out every day. Yep. So that's why I'll tell you, like, if you're miserable, just figure it out. Like, I promise you, I am living life right now with the bigger than normal American family. We're a blended bunch. And I walked away from a career making a lot more money than I'm making right now. I can just tell you in life, and I've never been happier. I can honest to God say that. And guess what? We haven't missed a meal. The lights are on. We're going on vacation in 2 weeks. The same vacation we take every year. Like, it's going to be okay.
By
like,
figuring it out.
Just figure it out. Like, figure it out. Like, that's my,
I like it.
That would be my life advice, is figure it out. And I look at those words every day, man. Figure it out.
I like it.
Easier said than done sometimes because of situations, all that. But there's a way. Like you said, I got a lot of irons in the fire. That's how I figure it out every day.
Awesome.
We move and shake. That's it.
Well, Luke Dunkin, we really appreciate it. If you haven't checked out his podcast, Low Budget Live, not so live a lot of times. A lot of times it's live.
Sometimes
but
live.
Man, I'd love to go round two with you in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Good job today. We'll let you get back to your chores. And thanks a lot, bro.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Luke.
Appreciate you.
Awkward.
Yeah.
I'm so awkward. I'm not cool. Chris tried to make me cool. Trait wanted it to be cool. It wasn't cool.
Low Budget Live. Go check it out.
Thank y'all.